in fucking Goldman Sachs. That's the reality. But challenge you is not meant to embarrass you, it's meant to expose the reality. You know fuck all about Africa and what's going on the continent. You know fuck all about AFRICOM and the expansion of America's US bases into 35 states in Africa. You know fuck all about the African Union and how it was Gaddafi. It was Gaddafi who was fighting for an independent Africa. Gaddafi, the motherfucker who you killed. Gaddafi was one of the greatest Pan-Africans that existed. The greatest. I don't say that in defense of Gaddafi because I believe Gaddafi should have stepped aside a long time ago. I believe Gaddafi did some things that I do not agree with. One of which was when he was trying to get friendly with the West. And Gaddafi said that you had migrants, you had people moving through Libya to get to Italy. And Gaddafi said he will stop the dark ages from descending upon Europe. And he built detention camps housing black Africans. So I have issues with Gaddafi. But looking at Gaddafi's history, half of you motherfuckers know nothing about Gaddafi or the war that you sanctioned in Libya. In 1951, Libya was ranked at the bottom of the Human Development Index chart. Libya was therefore ranked as the poorest country on earth. By 2006, Libya had the fastest growing GDP in Africa at 10.6%. They had the highest standard of living in Africa on the continent. I was in Libya during the war. In Libya during the war. People driving brand new cars, living comfortably, women's rights. What Gaddafi had achieved, you motherfuckers haven't got a clue. There was free education, free healthcare, free social housing. This was what's on the table for Africa, but you knew nothing about it. The African Union, which came from the OAU, the Organization of African Unity, was founded on the 26th of May, 1963. But it became ineffective. It was Gaddafi who was fighting for an African Union, for a United States of Africa. He wanted a unified Africa, he wanted a common monetary system, banking system, a judiciary for Africa, and an African military. It was Gaddafi who brought that into existence. The African Union, the meeting that brought the AU into existence. Where was it? It was in Libya. It's known as the Sirte Declaration of the 9th of September, 1999, signed in the birthplace of Gaddafi. Gaddafi bankrolled the African Union. That is why, when the Americans went to the African Union to get clearance to invade Libya or to bomb Libya or to impose a no-fly zone on Libya, the African Union said no. Even American puppets like Yoweri Museveni of Uganda, an American puppet who supports America by sending troops into Somalia and other countries, into the Congo. Even Yoweri Museveni, an American ally, said no, 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 no. That shows you the strength of feeling around Africa for Gaddafi. Are you aware that Nelson Mandela's grandson is called Gaddafi, named after Gaddafi? I don't suppose any of you motherfuckers know that. Nelson Mandela's grandson is called Gaddafi. That is the man who you murdered. And look at what we have going on in Libya now. Look at Libya now. Look at Libya now. Mohamed Magharif is the president, or was the president. He resigned a few days ago. Mohamed Magharif was the president of Libya. He resigned a few days ago under pressure because they want to pass a law saying that no Gaddafi-era officials can sit in office. He didn't resign, he was pushed. But who was Mohamed Magharif? Mohamed Magharif spent 30 years in America. He was an American puppet. Mohamed Magharif, a US citizen.
Get to the point.
Spent 30 years. My friend, there is no point. I'm here to pass time. So you're wasting your time, so you can go. There is no point. My friend, I was smoking some weed this morning and I thought, what can I do with my time? I thought, let me come to Speaker's Corner and pass some time. If you're looking for a point, go over there where the Christians have a point. Get God in your life. That's where the points are. They make points, I make statements. And if you're trying to be a heckler, my friend, you're in the wrong meeting. If you want to heckle, you start with the Christians, that's your undergrad. You then go to the Muslims, that's your postgrad. And then you end up here where you're doing your PhD. My friend, you've jumped your studies. Go over to the meeting. My friend, so as I was saying, you have to deal with these motherfuckers. Goodbye. Adios. Arrivederci. I'm sorry, that's how you deal with hecklers. I've been here for 27 years speaking on Speakers Corner. I know these motherfuckers when they come up. Little suicide hecklers. My friends,
America don't like the Pope in South America, I do.
thank you for the advertisement. Now, Mohammed Magharif spent 30 years in America. The Prime Minister of Libya, Ali Zidane, spent 30 years in Europe. In Syria, the rebel coalition have recently elected a Prime Minister. Who is their Prime Minister? Anyone know? Hassan Hoti. Hassan Hoti is the new interim rebel coalition leader, Prime Minister. Who is Hassan Hoti? Hassan Hoti is an IT technician. He lived in Texas for 30 years. Are you hearing me? He's an American citizen. The Free Syrian Army are opposed to him because they say, who is he? Who is he? In Iraq, when America overthrew Iraq, who did they try to bring in as the president? They brought back Ahmed Chalabi. Who was Ahmed Chalabi? Ahmed Chalabi left Iraq in 1954 when he was 12 years old, and he returned 47 years later. But because of opposition, the Americans couldn't shoehorn him into president, so he became the interim oil minister, signing away the rights of Iraqi oil to Western companies. And after that position, he became the deputy prime minister. He spent 47 years in America. Are you hearing me? Yeah. Jalal Talabani. No, he didn't spend time in he was in Syria.
No, Afghan.
Sorry?
Karazan, Afghanistan.
Afghanistan? Karzai.
He was in America.
Ahmed Karzai. In the 1980s, Ahmed Karzai was working for the CIA. Worked for Ali Burton. Ahmed Karzai, the president of Afghanistan. If we go to Africa, you can see the same thing happening. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf of Liberia moved to America in the 80s, a US citizen. She worked at the World Bank. She's now president. In fact, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, she actually brought into existence a TRC, Truth and Reconciliation Commission, to look at the crimes that were committed during the war in Liberia. The TRC in Liberia recommended that her, along with 50 other former politicians, should not be allowed to participate in the elections in Liberia for 30 years because of her crime, because of her association with warlords. She was the main backer of Charles Taylor. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, the woman who's the president now, was the main backer of Charles Taylor. Let's go even deeper into this shit. The question I would like to ask is, how did Charles Taylor, because remember, those of you who don't know, Charles Taylor, the president of Liberia, the warlord, Charles Taylor was in jail in America. He was imprisoned in America. And then all of a sudden, he escaped from jail in America and hence ends up in Liberia, armed to the teeth, fighting the President Samuel Doe. Are you hearing me? How did Charles Taylor escape from jail in America and end up as president of Liberia? No one asked the question. Backed by Eleanor Sirleaf Johnson, who worked at the World Bank. No one asked these questions. Or, why don't we ask the questions about the French? About the French who bombed the Ivory Coast Air Force in 2004. Or about the French who overthrew the Pan-Africanist Gbagbo in Ivory Coast in 2011 and replaced him with Ouattara. Who is President Ouattara now of Ivory Coast? President Ouattara of Ivory Coast worked, he was the chief economist, where? In the IMF. International motherfuckers. He worked as a chief economist at the IMF. Ouattara. Can you not see a pattern? We now see French troops, not UN troops, not African Union troops. We see French troops in Mali. Doesn't anyone ask, what are the French doing there? Because what we have now is a new scramble for Africa. a scramble for the resources of the world. We're coming to the final end game. We're almost at checkmate, where we've been fucked over. We're back to colonialism, back to slavery. All they have to do is get rid of Syria, or at least keep Syria destabilized. It weakens Iran, wipes out Sheikh Nasrallah's forces in Hezbollah, in Lebanon, and it's the end game. In Africa, we're already sold out because we Africans come fucking cheap. Where are you Africans? Where are you? Where are you? We come cheap, we as Africans. Do you remember when the United States, the United Snakes went to the United Nations in 2003 to get a resolution to attack Iraq because they said they had weapons of mass destruction, of which we now know was a lie. They were fighting for resolution 1441. Piers Morgan describes it perfectly. He said it was a resolution, a coalition of the bullied, the bribed, and the terrified. That was Piers Morgan. But what did we have? What America did was they went behind the scenes, bullying and bribing the permanent members of the Security Council, the 15-member seat on the Security Council. They went to Turkey and offered Turkey $3 billion in debt relief. Turkey said yes. But what's so insulting is what we Africans did. Guinea had a seat on the Security Council, and they gave Guinea 10 million. And we Guineans, we Africans, said one for you, one for me. One for you, and one for me. That's how corrupt the system is. But we never question it, we never challenge it. We are in some serious problems the world over. Serious problems. As a youth, I always wondered to myself, thinking, I wonder what the general population were doing in Germany when the Jews were being massacred. What was the general population doing? What were they thinking? What was their resistance to this? During slavery, because slavery, the inhumane capture of one human being and forcing the labor out of them without pay, raping the women at will.
It's evil.
I always wondered to myself, what was the general population thinking? Who could sanction this? And I thought the people who lived during this period, they must have been inhumane to sanction such crimes. But now I know what it was like. Because we, this generation, we're living through that very same period where we're seeing death, murder, serious human rights abuses committed in the name of humanity, and we are saying nothing. We are too busy consumed by social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. I don't even know these ones, man. You're busy, ain't you? YouTube. We're consumed, and you would have thought that we have more control, but no. We are more enslaved than ever before. People thought, I remember years ago they were saying, and people say it was a conspiracy. They said, they're going to put chips in the back of your hands. These were wild assertions, and many conspiracists jumped on it. Well, the idea doesn't seem so ridiculous now, because after all, we're all being tracked right now, because those of us who have mobile phones, they all know exactly where we are. If you're on the internet, they know what you like. They know what porn channels you like. They know what news channels you like. They know your little fetishes. Because now, in the modern world, we leave a digital trail like a snail. So they know everything. They're actually more informed about us now than ever before. Back in the day, we could meet around someone's house and say, fuck the state, man, I'm going to do this. Now you don't even know what electrical component is a microphone. That's how they're arresting so many people in advance. This is a microphone. If I can speak to someone from it, it can amplify and they can hear what I'm saying from it. It can be switched on with simple programs. We don't even realize just how consumed we are. We say, well, what is it? Why are we so consumed? We don't pay enough attention to world politics or what's going on around us. Because we go to work from 9 to 5, most of us. You come home from work, you make something to eat, you watch a little television, some of you may go to the pub, some of you may come back, masturbate, go to bed, wake up and repeat the same cycle that you did. On the weekend you're tired, you don't want to be bombarded with all of this deep political stuff. You're much more concerned about X Factor, or who's won what on Strictly Come Dancing, or Celebrity Big Brother, or The Voice. I don't even know the latest ones. We are consumed by life itself, and that's why we don't participate. That's why we are so prone to be manipulated via media propaganda. Look at the news stories that permeate the media every day. Muslim, 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 Muslim.
Immigrants, immigrants.
Immigrants, immigrants, immigrants. And the immigrant argument will get more momentum when it comes round to the elections. This is the world we're living in. It's a sad... Sorry, sir? What does it say about immigrants? They say there's too many, we've got to do this.
More people leave, we're taxed to death.
Election comes around, parties agree that immigration is a good thing.
Immigration is a good thing. Sir, at every elections, what the parties do is the parties compete against each other to see who can pass the worst policies against immigrants. They use it as to get votes. Of course.
Right, well, what's the reality of the matter? The reality of the parties is they're all for immigration. They all let millions of immigrants into the country.
Okay, sir, let me try and get to your argument without the abstract sort of confrontation with the parties. Do you believe personally that there are too many immigrants in this country?
Definitely.
Definitely. Now that's what I believed you wanted to say, but you masked it up in the... No, sir. I've said earlier, you weren't here when I said it. I said that if I were white, working class, poor, living in a housing estate, I saw immigrants coming to this country, taking away jobs and housing, and I was concerned about where my son or daughter may be housed, or where my daughter and son may get employment. If I were white, working class, I too would have those concerns. But I feel that what they do is they stifle the debate. And then they stifle the debate, and that's why we have reasonable and rational white English working class people voting for more radical and extreme parties because they don't feel that the mainstream parties represent their point of view. That's exactly what I'm saying. So, sir, I feel that the working class who have that point of view are marginalized. There should be a rational debate because this is normal, and instead, when you have white people who end up joining the BNP or the EDL as a result of immigration, they will then call you racist.
I'm racist.
Oh, you are racist. Well, there's a self-admission. Who don't you like? That's what racism is. Okay, well, who do you prefer?
I prefer my own kind.
You prefer your own kind and you feel nothing for the others. Now, sir.
Say that.
Oh, no, well, you said you prefer.
You said that.
Okay, you prefer your own kind better than anyone else. Sir,
that's right.
I think all people can agree to that.
Isn't there?
I think all people can agree to that. I don't think there's anything racist about that. But sir, I would say, in order to understand immigration, your gripe about immigration, we have to understand when immigration policy really started. Immigration policy to Britain really started post the Second World War, whereby they invited people from the Caribbean and the Asia from the Commonwealth to come here because of the labour shortages that existed because of those soldiers who died during the Second World War. My parents came here, my father worked in a factory, my mother was a nurse. They were invited specifically for those jobs. People came and worked for London Transport. If I find a black person who's elderly, let me find this man, for example. You, sir, what year did you arrive in country?
1960.
You came here in 1960?
Yes.
You came here to work where? Where did you work?
I work in the factory.
He worked in the factories. He was invited because there was a labour shortage in this country. Hold on, sir. Now, when he arrived in Britain, when we arrived as immigrants to Britain, we didn't arrive with passports. Where are you from, Jamaica?
I'm from Guyana.
From
British
Guyana.
Colony.
British Guyana. British colony. The people of Guyana had British passports. You had he arrived there on a British passport. My parents, when they arrived here on British passports. Nigeria was a British colony. Nigerians arrived here on British passports. We were considered British. We came back to the mother country. Now, you came to Africa. You spent 400 years in Africa. We've only been here 50 years. We have 350 years left. Sorry, sir.
You say because whites were in Africa 400 years, the blacks have got to live here for 400 years.
No, I don't say that. I don't say that. I say that if you can arrive in Africa and Asia and around the world and expect to spend 400 years, what problem do you have with people coming here? We never came here first. You came to our country. You stole our gold, uranium, titanium, cobalt, oil, copper, iron, silver, gold, coffee, tea. You took our resources.
The false and mercenary murdered women and children.
Oh wow! Hold on. Shut up. He says what? Sorry, sir. You say you gave us
We didn't build any railways.
We didn't build any railways. Hold on, my friend, my brother. What's wrong with you? Does anyone have a cigarette, please? Hold on. He said he gave us civilization.
When white people first went into black Africa,
Zimbabwe is an ancient civilization.
Hold on, he said when he came into Africa, black people had invented the reel. No, sir, at that time we invented how to walk upright and to speech. You understand? Now, sir, the oldest known university, sir, when Vasco da Gama, the European explorer, arrived in Africa, in West Africa, he found a sewage system when you were still throwing your shit out of your window. That's what happened. Sir, the oldest known university, the continent of university, came from Timbuktu. We had the empires of Mali and Songhai. In Egypt, we had the largest library in the world until when Alexander the Great arrived there. And he thought, wow, how could blacks have this civilization? He burnt it down. And then the next largest library was in Iraq. That's why they arrived and saw the Sphinx with a broad nose looking like that. What did they do? They blew it off with a fucking cannon. You don't know your history. Sir, no you don't. Sir, you're great philosophers, Pythagoras spent 7 years studying in Egypt. We have Plato. Have you read any Greek philosophy? I'm sure you have. What have you read? You haven't read anything, have you? You've read The Sun.
The man is a
Now tell me, what have you read in philosophy?
I've read quotes from various philosophers.
Quotes. I didn't ask you if you've read quotes, I've asked you if you've read anyone.
I've read the whole book.
No, you haven't. No, I wouldn't ask you to do something so taxing. My friend, if you read and study and follow Greek philosophy, and we must admit that the Greeks are seen as the fathers of Western civilization, Plato, in Plato's Republic, in the first chapter, the first pages of Plato's book, he says he went to Africa, following in the footsteps of his teacher, Socrates. Diogenes studied in Africa. The Pythagoras theorem was devised from Africa when Pythagoras went in to study medicine, but came up with mathematical theories. But still, you know nothing.
I know,
of course, sir.
And I know that there's sub-Saharan.
You know nothing about Africa. All you know is that black people swing from tree to tree and talk about ooga booga, ooga booga, ooga booga. You're educated about Africa watching Tarzan.
Slavery is evil, absolutely evil. There's no other word for it. Slavery. It's evil.
No, sir. Sir, let me shake your hand. Remember, sir, we're only debating, and I'm only using whatever cheap gimmicks I can get to debate with you. But I respect the fact that you are confident and brave enough to express your point of view, and you have the right to that point of view. All we're doing is debating and exchanging points of view. And I hope that I learned something from you in the process, and I hope likewise you learned something from me in the process. Because, sir,
you prefer to ignore
sir, what would you want me to ignore?
the fact that Africa is a very big place, and you can't compare sub-Saharan Africa with North Africa.
Why not?
Because they're, for a start, very different people in Africa.
Sir, Africa's a continent, like Europe.
Yes.
Very different people live in Europe.
The Egyptian civilization you're talking about is not a black civilization.
Hold on. He says, hold on, sir, excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. He says the black civilization, the civilization of Egypt wasn't a black civilization.
Yeah.
Then what was it?
It's a white.
Hold on. And where have these white people gone? To Europe.
Where have they gone?
Where have they gone?
Well, if you go to Egypt today, you'll still find plenty of white people who discriminate against blacks.
Plenty of white
I've had a
people?
man stand here telling me about it.
My friend, sir,
he was
I think you're
thrown out
totally
of the bus.
mistaken and you have no understanding of the relationship of Egypt to the rest of the world. Nothing. Sir, the first country, were you born a Christian? No. Maybe. Your parents. Were they Christian?
One of those, yeah.
One of them was. The first country named in the Bible is what?
The first country?
Yes. Ethiopia is the first country name in the Bible. Now, are you aware that the oldest Jews come from Ethiopia?
Yeah.
Are you aware of that?
Yeah.
Are you aware that the Queen of Sheba, King Solomon, are you aware of this history? You don't, are you? You don't, sir. Tell me the name of one prophet from the Bible who came from Europe. Because we're looking at books. The prophets of the Bible came from Africa and Asia. So therefore, what we're looking at is scholars, people who recorded their history. The oldest known form, the oldest known form of handwriting is where?
I'm sorry.
The oldest known form of handwriting is where?
Probably Sumerian.
No, sir.
Babylon,
Iraq. Not even the hieroglyphics.
Sumerian.
Iraq, sir. Hold on. Not even the hieroglyphics.
Mesopotamia.
Not even the hieroglyphics. Iraq. Sir, the numeral system, the numbers 1 to 9, where did that come from? The numbers 1 to 9 are Arabic. The number 0 is the Hindu goose egg symbol, meaning nil. We gave you mathematics. We.
You're a physician.
We. Sir, when I say, sir, hold on.
While all this was going on,
Sir.
your ancestors were living in sub-Saharan.
Sir, the oldest known iron ore mine in the world, the oldest iron ore smelting mine in the world is in South Africa.
Yeah.
The oldest where they smelted iron 25,000 years ago.
Who was doing it?
Oh, not the white man. Sir,
Were the Bushmen of South Africa doing it? The Hottentots?
I don't care about your prejudices.
Sir. History.
Sir,
The first law is Hammurabi, Iraq.
Sir, two of the world's greatest leading anthropologists and archaeologists. They're white people, and so it must be true. Professor Ashley Montague and Dr. Richard Leakey. Professor Ashley Montague and Dr. Richard Leakey are both agreed that life began in Africa some 6 million years ago. That means that we, the black man and woman from Africa and Asia, brought you into existence by mistake, of course. By accident. It was an accident.
How did you do it then?
How that happened was, we in Africa, some of us said, oh gosh, it's getting crowded here, let's move around. So we came to Europe, we came to Europe where the climate was not conducive to the melanin in our skin. So over the years, evolution happened, and we no longer need. Sir, that's why, sir. As a white man, you have more vitamin D in your skin. The vitamin D in your skin protects you from the cold. That's why during the war, most black people were suffering from frostbite, whereas whites could survive. That's why when you go to hot countries, that's why you had slavery in the Caribbean. You didn't have slavery because you were racist. Slavery was about economics. You first of all enslaved the native people, the Caribs and the Arawaks. They died off. You then enslaved Irish people. The Irish were also slaves. Irish. And many of them died off. And then you went and took Africans, blacks from Africa, and brought them to the Caribbean because our skin and our resilience of being outdoor is much more adapted than your own. Sir, you evolved from us, unfortunately. So when you see me, you say, hello, Ducky.
I evolved from
Yes, son.
Well, it's very
You
strange.
came from me. So when you say, we the white man did this, we the white man did that, we the black man taught you how to walk upright. If it wasn't for us, you'd still be walking on all fours.
To make up for it. Then we gave you a sail to put on a boat. You should have had a sail.
Sir, we look at Africa. Okay,
Written language. You should have read written language.
okay, sir. Let's get racial. I believe we're all the same people, but let's get racial for the sake of debate. Let us Africans and Asians and those people from the Middle East, let us all go back to our countries and leave the English alone. Now, if we go back, send us back, you have to first of all send back the British Museum, because there's fuck all British in there. Right? Then you send us back with our gold, diamonds, uranium, titanium, cobalt, oil, copper, iron, lead, silver, rice, coffee, cocoa, tea. Sir, when we take our resources, what will you have in Europe to trade with us? Hold on. What do you have in Europe that you need to trade with us in the world? Fish and chips. Fish and chips. Yes, fish and chips is a manufactured good. You get the potato, you peel it, you fry it. Kellogg's cornflakes. Sir, I asked you a legitimate question. What do you have in Europe that you can trade with the rest of the world?
Manufactured goods.
What manufactured goods?
Whatever.
Like what? Give me an example.
Well, unfortunately, this country's been run into the ground.
Tell me what you have.
Over the last 50
Dennis,
years.
What do you have?
That's the end.
It's been run into the ground because you ended empire, where you stole resources. What do you have in
It's
Europe?
all been traded out
What
over the
do you
world
have, sir?
Because people work cheaper.
Okay, so sir, so now you have nothing. You need us here.
We don't have much of a manufacturing
You had best
base.
beg me to stay here. You had best bring your daughter or some relatives for me to marry and stay in this country. You need us in this country. You need immigrants. You have nothing. What do you have? We have gold, diamond, uranium, titanium, cobalt, oil, copper, iron, lead, silver, rice, coffee, cocoa, tea. What do you have?
Like North Korea, better than Cuba.
Not time for an advert, so it's too early. What do you have? You have nothing. So why don't, sir, why don't we try, sir? So why don't we try?
I'll be reading some magazines I gave him from North Korea. Don't blame anybody, don't need anybody.
We're all human beings. Why can we not learn to coexist? And if
Revolution everywhere, like North Korea.
If immigrants weren't
Better
here,
than Cuba.
sir,
Don't go to Cuba, go to North Korea.
racism is such that if immigrants and black people weren't here, you, the English, would find someone else to fight. You still don't even get along amongst yourselves. The Welsh don't want to be British. The Scots don't like you. The Irish want their independence. Look, you're fucked anyway. Brother, listen, we as black people, we are not the ones who are promoting globalization. You are the ones promoting globalization. So now we have a global identity. Sir, that is one of the big problems I think that's facing British society. It's the lack of identity. They've lost their identity because years ago when you were growing up, you grew up understanding that Britain was known as Great Britain. Now there's fuck all great about it. You have nothing, and your empire is gone, and your identity is lost because now you became part of Europe. You don't want to be, and you're so prejudiced against other Europeans. You call the French frogs, you call the Germans krauts, you believe you're superior to everyone else. Sir, I put this to you, Adolf Hitler. Why do you say to us that Adolf Hitler was the wickedest man on earth? I say you, not you mean you in a general sense. They tell us that Hitler is a man that must be hated because Hitler was an evil man. Of course he was an evil man. Hitler killed 6 million Jews. Hitler killed many others. He killed 22 million Russians. So they say. So the white man says. And if the white man says, it must be true. Black man never said it, the white man said it must be true. Sir, they say 22 million Russians died. 6 million Jews died. Hitler, they say, was a wicked man. Why was Hitler wicked? Hitler was wicked because Hitler colonized white countries. Because Hitler wanted an empire like the British. Sir, are you aware that 30 million Indians died as a result of British policy from 1800 to 1900? Are you aware that 3 million Indians died under policies perpetrated by Winston Churchill? We don't know the history. Are you aware that the people of Tasmania, there are no more living Tasmanians alive because the entire population of Tasmania in the first and only ever successful genocide in modern history, the British massacred every single Tasmanian that exists today. The first successful genocide. The word concentration camp did not come from Adolf Hitler. The word came from Lord Baden-Powell in South Africa during the Boer War, when the idea was to concentrate the civilian population to stop supplies from getting to the Boers. That was the word concentration camp, not Adolf Hitler. The eugenics program. The eugenics program was devised by whom? By the cousin of Charles Darwin. That was eugenics, survival of the fittest. My friend, you blame Adolf Hitler for all of these things without even looking at your own history. How many black people died in the empire? 10 million blacks died in the Belgian Congo, in Congo. under the Belgians. The Berlin Conference of 1886, whereby Europeans sat round a table, took a ruler, a pen and a map and said, this will be Nigeria, this will be Ghana. You divided Africa. In the 1920s, you divided the Ottoman Empire. You took a ruler, a pen and a map and you divided and said, that will be Iraq. That will be Saudi Arabia. You did it. The first ever crime of chemical weapons used against the Kurds was not Saddam Hussein in Halabja of 1988. It was Winston Churchill in 1920 when he used nerve gas against the Kurdish people. Why? Because the Kurdish people were resisting British colonialism. So as an act of spite and revenge, when you divided the Middle East, you deliberately left off Kurdistan, and now the people of Kurdistan are separated amongst Iraq, Syria, Turkey, Syria, Iran. The Kurdish domain is spread out, and they're still now fighting these nations because you created those borders. You created the conflict. Saddam Hussein in the 1960s went before Iraq in the 1960s went before the United Nations claiming that Kuwait is historically territory of Iraq. 1960, before Saddam Hussein. But you have a very shallow depth of history, my friend. In fact, I would say you lack understanding of history. You don't know it. You don't know it.
Well, everything you've said.
Who did you learn your history from? A Pakistani? Who?
Myself, reading books.
Yourself, reading books. Books written by whom? The victors.
Not always written by the victors.
Sir, until lions have their own historians, the tale of the hunt will be told by the hunter. That is a very old African proverb. Understand it. Understand it. Imagine, you write history, you tell us about Hitler, how wicked Hitler was. The French were colonized by the Germans, and they were all whinging and moaning, oh, look. And then the French fighting against the Germans called themselves freedom fighters. How dare you fucking French call yourself freedom fighters when you were colonizing Algeria? When you colonized Morocco, when you colonized Senegal, look how many places, when you colonized Southeast Asia, and after the Second World War, you still had your colonies. You learned nothing from Adolf Hitler. My friend, I say this, I go even further. I go even further. Israel would not exist today were it not for Adolf Hitler. Israel would not exist today. And before they gave the Zionist movement, Israel or Palestine, before they gave away the land of Palestine to the Zionist movement, the Europeans offered the Zionist movement as a homeland. You offered them Uganda. Yes. You offered the Zionist people a country in Africa to establish.
Before that, Singapore.
The creation of Israel as a Jewish homeland,
Sir,
was created during the First World War.
Sir, it was not. You're talking about the Balfour Agreement of 1917.
Yeah.
The Balfour Agreement is totally separate, totally different in its ideology, in its thinking. Sir, it was not even established. Understand it. Israel was established. Israel was established as a result of the guilt that you Europeans felt that was committed against Jews in Europe. Because it wasn't only the Germans. It wasn't only the Germans who killed Jews. The Ukrainians killed Jews. The Russians killed Jews.
Not surprised there's any Jews left.
The British knew about the murders of the Jewish people. You gave away Palestine as a means of your guilt. Now, I believe that the Jewish people deserve a homeland for the crimes that were committed against them in Europe. But if you're going to give away a homeland to the Jews, give them land from the people who perpetrated the crimes. Leave Palestine alone for the Palestinians. Give them fucking Germany. Have it. They can have England as well if they want it, but leave Brixton alone. Have it. Have it. But you have no right to the land of Palestine, and you gave it away. You, the British.
That Balfour Declaration.
The Balfour Declaration. A land, sir. The Balfour Declaration. A land consensus carried out by the British. So it must be true. A land consensus conducted by the British, ascertained that by 1918 there was only 3% of the population were Jewish. 3% of Palestine were Jewish. Now, my friend, I've got nothing against Zionists or people who are Jewish. But the reality is, the history of the Zionists, many of them come from Eastern Europe. 25% of the Israeli Knesset right now is made up of Russian Jews. Many of them are immigrants who are not even Jewish. They're fleeing economic persecution in Russia and fled to Israel before the collapse of the Soviet Union.
And Flasha from Ethiopia.
The Falashas from Ethiopia. My friend, understand
Russians
it.
are persecuted.
Sir, when we discuss Israel, Zionism, I don't say Jewish because I've got nothing against Jews, I am opposed to Zionism. Judaism is a religion of which you can convert to. I know they say you can't, but you convert to the faith. It's not born in your blood, you convert to Judaism. So let's avoid arguments of history, let's avoid the arguments of politics, let us go into the argument of biology, genealogy. I'm saying this, look at the people who call themselves Zionists, who live in Israel today. Look at them. Many of them have blonde hair and blue eyes, white skin. It is genealogically, it is biologically impossible for them to have originated from that part of the world. Imagine if I said to you, I'm from China. There'd be serious problems. I could not tell you I'm from China. But sir, in saying that, I'm not opposed to Jewish people because they are victims of history. We are all victims of history. Sir, if I were a Palestinian, I too might be a member of Hamas. I too may be attacking Israel and its citizens. But likewise, if I were an Israeli born in Israel, I too might be a member of the IDF. I too will be defending the right of Israel to exist. Both sides are victims of history. And until we begin to discuss and debate the argument rationally, we are never going to find a conclusion. Never. So we'll always have both sides fighting and murdering each other. There are solutions. There are rational solutions. We have to understand that they are there. In Israel, the United Nations passed Resolution 242, 1967, saying that Israel must leave the occupied territories. That is the UN. They've passed 66 other resolutions. Why are they not enforced? But you want to enforce resolutions against Saddam Hussein? I say, we know now that the only solution to the Palestinian problem is a two-state solution. Two-state solution. Let us revert back to the borders of 67. Let us ensure Israel's security. Let us secure the statehood and sovereignty of Palestine. Let's try and find some negotiable solution to stop people from dying, because the people who are always the victims are the civilians. The politicians on both sides are the ones who make money from war. They're the ones who exploit the fighting. I mean, look at it for example. I say this, you Arabs, you Muslims, you love to blame Jews, but you are the biggest obstacle to Palestinian independence and freedom. You Arabs and you Muslims, because you talk out of both sides of your mouth. You say, oh, we want freedom for Palestine, but you do fuck all to bring that reality into existence. My friend, Europe, when Europe doesn't like you, when Europe has a problem with a Middle Eastern leader, or an Arab leader, or a Muslim leader, or an African leader, what do? They form a bloc, the EU, and they impose sanctions. They say, none of us will trade with you. None of us will sell you arms. None of us will do any business with you until you change. How is it that you Muslims from OPEC, how is it that you Arabs from Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Iran cannot get together and say, until there is a peaceful solution to the Palestinian conflict, there is no more oil to you Europeans, no more oil until we have a peaceful solution. But you greedy bastards, fight amongst yourselves. Look at it, hold on. But let's go deeper. Let's understand why. In Jordan, there are over 2 million Palestinian refugees or people of Palestinian birth living in Jordan. King Abdullah realizes that if there is ever a free and independent Palestine, whoever rules Palestine will have a de facto influence in Jordanian politics. That is the reality that they don't want to come face to face with. They are terrified that the war in Palestine signifies and symbolizes the war of Islam against the West. So even though Palestine is secular, there is the fear that it might spread a wave of Islamic fundamentalism across the Arab states. Because remember, if we go back 15 or 20 years, 15 years ago, we weren't talking about Iraq, we weren't talking about Iran, we weren't talking about Syria.